let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did City do this week?
It's time for Mattress Running the Numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now. Today's main event, Dissecting the Deal. United Business Class to New Zealand and beyond. The deal's dead, but we're going to talk about, should you have jumped on it? Could you have? Is it really that good of a deal? All these topics are worth discussing. And, I think it's worth discussing because next time there's something like this, it helps to know, is this something that you need to jump on right away before it's gone?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this a little bit because I thought about it, and I think talking about the way we thought through it and what we did and why we did or didn't do it, I feel like there's some interesting discussion there. So I'll be curious to get into that with you in a few minutes.
Yep.
But first,
no,
I
thought you had a new first.
I was teeing it up for you.
You were getting ahead of me. All right, yeah. First the giant mailbag, and today's giant mail comes from me. So it's almost sort of like a post roast in advance because I'm taking advantage of my time here. Because Nick, you've written a few times about how the Capital One portal for booking hotels was better than you expected. Mm-hmm. And my experience, so you remember my wife signed up for the Venture X card. Mm-hmm. And she got the full 100K bonus, which was available back then and everything. But since then, I've been trying to spend the $300 in portal credit that you get each year with that card. And I've looked, I think, 3 times now through the portal. And here's what I found. One time, the cost of a stay that I wanted was going to be $100 more through the Venture portal, through the Capital One portal, than Booking Direct.
Nobody wants that.
And yeah. And then the other 2 times, even though there were refundable rates bookable elsewhere, I could not find refundable rates bookable through the Capital One portal. So it only listed, non-refundable. And in both those cases, that was just not an option for me. Right. So this is frustrating. I want to spend the $300, get the $300 credit back, but no luck so far. I'm
sorry you have such poor taste in places to stay. Wherever it is you're picking, I couldn't find those places. So I'm not totally surprised to hear that, just because obviously my sample size was limited to not everywhere anyone would ever stay. So the places that I checked, I found there to be good deals and good cancellation policies, but I'm not surprised that there's some variance there. And that's frustrating because then I know that some readers will be in the same situation where they won't be able to use it either. And so, yeah, that's kind of annoying and good to know that you've run into it now. I used up the rest of my credits through there. I also used some for a rental car, I believe, if I remember correctly. I can't remember now. I have to go back and check. But anyway, so I did use up the rest of the Venture X credits. The first one was a hotel where it was a better deal, but yeah. So I guess it depends.
So
if you stay at the Hampton Inn was it the Hampton Inn or Residence Inn in outside of Columbus, Ohio? It turns out it's not such a bad deal.
That's a good deal. Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Fairfield Inn. I can't remember what it was.
Hopefully, I'll need a $300 stay each year. Right. Else this card is gonna be going away. We'll see.
Buy a car around the corner from the Fairfield Inn, and you're all set.
Right. Great way to earn 500,000 membership rewards points too.
Right.
If that deal ever comes back.
Thank you, Amex and Capital One. All right. So that's too bad. And I swear I had a confession to add to this week's mailbag time that I was going to surprise you with, but I can't remember what it was right now. So apparently it wasn't that big of a mistake. So instead we should talk about what crazy thing. So what crazy thing did Nearside do?
Nearside is that debit card it's that business debit card that is offering 2.2% cash back on all purchases, including debit purchases made this year. So that's, a fantastic deal. But it's always been a little bit confusing as to what exact purchases count. So, we know that most purchases do count, but anything that's like a financial transaction does not count. And so there have been a lot of questions about, will taxes count? So the nice thing Nearside did is they sent out an email saying, in my case, Gregory, earn 2.2% cash back when you pay your taxes with Nearside.
That sounds great. There's nothing
right.
crazy
Sounds
about
great.
that. That's
it's
awesome.
Not crazy, right?
That beats the fee, right? Because the fee is for a credit card tops out, I think, at 1.99%, right? And this is a debit card.
It beats the credit card fee. The debit card fee is almost nothing, depending on, because it's like a few dollars for a debit card fee. So if you're paying at all a sizable amount, it's like nothing compared to the how much you're going to get cash back. So the only crazy thing, so tax day, the day our taxes were due, was April 18th this year. Mm-hmm. And Nearside started sending out this email on April 19th.
I saw that email and I laughed. What Nearside? How you gonna? I mean, come on, that wasn't an accident, right? They waited until the day after everybody paid their taxes to be like, oh yeah, you can pay your taxes with
it. Well, why send it off? So I think what happened is a bunch of people paid their taxes on or before April 18th with the Nearside debit card, and the Nearside folks looked at them and said, oh look, it's counting to earn 2.2% back. We better send out an email telling people,
because they didn't know either, and nobody knows.
No,
yeah, it's not like the folks in charge would have an idea, right? Oh man, well it's hilarious, although not totally useless, because if you pay quarterly payments, and at least your next few quarterly payments, you could use that and potentially turn a nice little profit, so to speak. I mean, you're still paying taxes, but you could earn better than the fee anyway if you have to pay. So I mean, it's got some utility. And then maybe if you have property taxes or something that are due on a different schedule than federal taxes, I mean, I could certainly envision a number of situations where that'll hopefully be useful. But sure, the day after tax day, I rolled my eyes. I saw that, I was like, thanks Nearside.
Right. So my email actually came 2 days after tax day, but we know Tim's came the day after.
Mine did too. Mine came the day after. Yep.
Yeah. So that's even stranger. Why they're waiting to inform some people.
They're like, oh no, that Greg guy, he might have filed for an extension. We got to wait an extra day.
I don't know what's going on there, but no, I am looking forward to using it for estimated tax payments. I am going to start moving money into that account well in advance, because Nearside, it takes quite a while for the money to credit over there. So you need to have it actually in there before you make the payment. So
I even tried a wire transfer and it failed. It got reversed. And I was like, what?
Oh, really? Weird.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Slow.
Well,
slow.
Yes. Slow stuff.
All right.
Shall we move on to what crazy thing? What crazy thing did?
Well, no, that was the crazy thing, Greg.
That was the crazy thing.
It's time for
what crazy thing did Greg just say?
Let me give a job here, Greg. Let me give a job, okay?
We've been messing up the whole show by jumping ahead and doing each other's parts. It's not working.
So let's move on to Mattress Running the Numbers. So this week's Mattress Running the Numbers, we're going to talk about Wyndham, because you might want to mattress run Wyndham, I guess, right? What's the promo? What's going on?
So Wyndham has a promo where if you stay 2 nights, you get double points, 3 nights, triple points, 4 nights, quadruple points, and 5 nights, you get fipple points. So 5x points, fipple points, 5x points for 5-night stays or longer. And Wyndham is pretty rewarding on paid stays to begin with. I posted a thing about which hotel programs are most rewarding on paid stays, and Wyndham did really well on there. And so with 5 times the points, would it be worth simply going and booking 5-night stay at Wyndham and just earning the points, even if you don't care about staying there? So just for an example, let's say it's $100 a night, $500 altogether for your 5-night stay. Get 25,000 points, and that's without like elite status bonuses or bonuses from paying with your credit card.
25,000 at fipple points. That's
points.
That's a that's a stack of Wyndham points. And so based on our reasonable redemption value, that's certainly a horrible idea if you don't need to stay, because what's our reasonable? I don't even know off the top of my head our reasonable redemption value for Wyndham points, but it's less than a penny a point. So
it is. I don't know off the top of my head either, but at 0.8 something.
Yeah. So even if it were a penny a point, that'd be $250 worth of points for your $500 stay. Great rebate if you're going to stay at a Wyndham property. Hey, I mean, it's hard to beat half back, right? Especially if you may be able to even go through a portal too. I haven't actually ever tried stacking a portal in a Wyndham stay. I don't know if they show up on any portals, but maybe you could do even better. I mean, that's a great rebate, not a Mattress Run.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But, keep in mind, if you have the Wyndham Business Earner Card, you're going to get, I think it's 8 points per dollar from the credit card if you pay with that credit card. And so, you'd end up with more than 25,000 points. And because you have an earner card, you could book 2 nights at a 1-bedroom Vacasa vacation rental with the points earned. So remember, Vacasa vacation rental, 1 bedroom, 13,500 points if you have the card. So this would be enough for 2 nights. And so $500 for 2 nights at a stay that might cost you a lot more than that.
Right. Well, okay. So there it could work out, I guess. I mean, that's not bad. And yeah, it is 8x Wyndham. So you would earn 8x there. Double check, fact check Greg on that, because I couldn't remember for sure myself. So yeah, that actually could potentially work out if you got a good use for the Vacasa points. Of course, keep in mind, Wyndham does sell the points occasionally for about a penny a point. So you can sometimes buy them for about $250. So again, questionable as to whether or not it's Mattress Run worthy, though. In the past, they used to cap you at 45,000 purchase points per year, though I think their last few sales, they've said 120,000 points per year. At any rate, there is a cap. So this might be a way if you need to get beyond the cap for a vacation rental or something. So, I mean, it's not a pure Mattress Run, but okay, you convinced me there are situations where you might want to do it. And if you have a paid Vacasa stay coming up, then you can get FIPL points on that, right? Wrong.
A paid Vacasa stay?
Right.
I don't think so.
I was looking to trap you with that one.
Yeah, no, I don't think you could book the Vacasa vacation rentals through Wyndham, which would be the only way you could then earn the FIPL points. Let me say why I wouldn't do this deal, even if I needed the points. Let me put it another way. It's like gambling, because we know from Wyndham portal deals that Wyndham does not understand what multiplying by 5 means.
That's the truth.
So they have these deals, once or twice a year where they say 5 times the points through the portal. And they have examples like, instead of earning 4 points per dollar at Apple Store, you'll earn 7. And, so that's something less than double. It's nowhere near 5 times as many. It's some magic number that we don't know how they got at. So, if the same mathematician is awarding the bonus points for this promo as the portal promo, you're probably in trouble. But you have the possibility that they'll throw in another 0 or something, and
hit the jackpot.
It could be 300 times. In reality, who knows? But no,
no, it's true. And you know what? Like, you could extend that joke to the fact that even when there's that 7x or whatever, so many times now I've gotten a number that is not exactly 7x. It's like some weird random number. I got a Rimowa bag because
how many points they actually
post. I bought a bag through the portal because I did the point debit card referral promo, and I got the 5 referrals, so I was able to buy a bag and get reimbursed for it. So the bag was like a super even number. It was like almost $1,000 on the dot, because that's what point was reimbursing. And so at 14x, it should have been like 14,000 points, and I got some, like, I don't know, 13,272, but it was like less than what 14, but not enough that I bothered to send an email about it. But I was like, where do they even come up with this number? Like, I don't even understand.
Yeah. Well, the real portal rate was probably 13.621, and they had rounded it up to make it easier to read on the portal.
Right. Clearly. That must be where the FIPL points comes from. I mean, that must be the whole origin of this. So short version of the story. I mean, I doubt that I shouldn't say that. You'll probably get the 5x points properly.
I think it's likely you will, but maybe be prepared for it not to be exactly fitful.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Not exactly. That makes sense. And revisiting what I said, I thought it was kind of strange that you can't earn Wyndham points on a paid Vacasa stay. I just had a paid Vacasa stay, and I thought it was kind of weird that I can redeem Wyndham points for a Vacasa stay, can't earn them for a Vacasa stay, but like Greg said, you can't book it directly through Wyndham except using points, so no way to do that. Interesting.
Right. It is an interesting quirk. But
that's that. Okay, so speaking of booking things and awards and that sort of thing, we should probably slide right into today's main event.
The main event, dissecting the deal. So United was out with it wasn't really a deal. I mean, this is what they charge for.
Are you jumping ahead to like your opinion here, saying it's
yeah, I guess I am. Let me get into what the deal was. Wide open award availability to places like Wellington, New Zealand, but many other places, just all around the globe. There were wide open award availability and times, whenever you wanted to go. Often the originating airport could be airports that United sort of barely serves, and yet they were making award availability, through all the way. And an example is I was able to book from Detroit through Houston to Wellington, New Zealand through Sydney. So it was like Detroit, Houston, Sydney, and then a Air New Zealand flight. This part was an economy. The rest was first class and business class. An economy flight from Sydney to Wellington, New Zealand. So what is special about that isn't really the award price as much as the availability of it. So you could book your whole family, for example, if you had enough miles.
Right. And I don't know. I think it's a little unfair to say that the price wasn't special. I mean, it was 60,000 miles each way. So 60,000 United miles to New Zealand. I don't know. That's not ever been the saver price, or at least not before they eliminated the award charts, to my knowledge. I mean, Asia.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Asia I was is 80K. So I think it's 80.
Yeah. You could be right. I guess what I was thinking is more like, it's not that special because there are other programs where you could get that similar saver level price if there was awards available, but you would never see that many awards available with those other programs.
Right. So that's a separate point. That was one of the first arguments that I was going to make about why I wasn't completely enamored with the deal, because on the one hand, 60,000 United miles for business class to the South Pacific, I mean, or rather to down under to New Zealand, to wherever it was in that part of the world, that is a notable deal. Because I mean, come on, somebody commented, I think, to say that, if you want to fly from Chicago to Denver on a Tuesday, it's like 40,000 United miles. So 60 to get to New Zealand. I mean, that is really notable from the perspective of, man, with this dynamic pricing, a lot of times the silliest little itineraries can cost almost that much. So I think it was notable from that perspective. But the argument, of course, on the flip side is, well, you could use 55,000 Alaska miles and fly Fiji Airways and get a free stopover in Fiji on your way to New Zealand or Australia, that part of the world. So 60,000 United miles isn't an unheard of quantity, but the availability also, that piece, I mean, this is huge. Not only availability for lots of people, but even from, like you said, these small airports. I mean, I looked at Albany, New York. You never find award availability originating in Albany. If I'm going to fly international, I've always got to drive to New York, basically, which is not a big deal to me, but being able to get it from my home airport, that seemed intriguing anyway, especially at that, again, 60,000 mile saver award space level, which was less, by the way, than what they were charging for premium economy on the same routes, right? I mean, premium economy is over 100K.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it was
That's
over 100K.
Funny. Yeah.
Premium economy.
Yeah. So the other part of it that was special about the award availability is that it wasn't limited to sort of off-peak travel times. So it's usually when we see deals to Australia and New Zealand, it's in our summer and their winter. what we saw widely available were flights in our winter, their summer, which is ideal time to go to New Zealand, and even over the holidays. So I was able to easily book flights that were spanned New Year's, and so took advantage of our holiday times where some of us are off work, and it's normally, like, nearly impossible to find good price deals, let alone flight awards during those times.
Yeah, I mean, let's back up to the fact that it's nearly impossible to find awards to Australia and New Zealand in general. I mean, really any time of the year, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not impossible, but it's usually fairly difficult. And if you're not willing to position via Asia, then it's really difficult. Like finding something from the United States to Australia or New Zealand is like almost unheard of at the safer level, right? I mean, you got to be hawking it and know how many days in advance availability comes out, and like looking constantly or setting alerts with expert flyer and stuff like that. It's usually fairly difficult. If you stumble on that one day and you're just lucky, I mean, then book it normally. So that's why you look at this and say, well, okay, then yeah, I mean, everybody should have booked this, right? Everybody should have just hustled down and booked it. Yet I didn't, but I think you did. So which way is it, Greg? Should people book, or should they have booked or not? Is this the kind of situation where you should have been like, boom, let me hit that button, or who should have and who shouldn't have?
Right. And also, like, let's also expand that after we talk about it to how should you use those ideas to think about the next deal that comes out, because our purpose here isn't to rub it in if you didn't know about this deal in time or you didn't have the miles in order to book it, but rather to talk about, exactly what you just brought up. Why should you or why shouldn't you book it when this thing comes up, when this sort of thing happens? Now, for me, I had hundreds of thousands of United miles thanks to the pandemic. Now, actually, thanks to Life Miles not knowing that Lufthansa flew through Munich 2 years ago from Detroit. So backing way up.
Now I'm confused. What does that have to do with it? Let's hear this. I'm curious.
So I was booking a trip to Europe for, gosh, I think it was 7 people altogether. 5 people altogether. There was a new flight. So normally from Detroit, you could fly Detroit to Frankfurt on Lufthansa nonstop, and then from Frankfurt to pretty much anywhere in Europe. And but the place we wanted to go didn't have award availability between Frankfurt and where we were going. So, but there was a new flight that was available that summer between Detroit and Munich on Lufthansa. So that's an unusual thing. And Life Miles had the best deal that I could find on that flight, because they don't charge fuel surcharges, just like United doesn't. And but they were much cheaper than United. But Life Miles could not see that route, that new route. So I ended up transferring a lot of points from Chase Ultimate Rewards to United to book it. Cost more miles for United, but at least I could book it. And where it was, happy with that flight anyway. And then, of course, pandemic hits, had to cancel the whole thing. So now I'm sitting on many hundreds of thousands of United miles and no idea what I'd ever do with them until this deal came along.
Now you're like, that's what I'll do. I'm going to New Zealand.
Yeah. And the other thing that changed is that United made their, award tickets fully refundable as long as you cancel within 30 days of the departure.
No. As long as you cancel 30 days or more, right? So let's be careful. Within 30 days. Within 30 days, you're going to.
As long as you don't cancel within 30 days. Thank you.
More than 30 days in advance.
And you could change them even within 30 days for free. You could change to a later flight. So that 30-day thing is easy to get around. So now I'm in a situation where there's like no downside, right? So I can book United flights whenever I see a deal. And if it turns out later I can't fly the flight. No big deal. I'll cancel, get the miles back, and we're all happy. So I was in this rare situation where not only could I book my wife and I to New Zealand, but I booked 2 different outbound flights and 2 different return flights, like on different dates, so that, as it got closer, we'd see what will actually work for us, and then we'll cancel the other ones.
That's awesome. It's nice to see when you do have that situation where you've got a bunch of miles on a program. That's great, because then you can just take advantage of deals like this and book a backup. I mean, then you give yourself a lot of options. So that,
Right.
is a situation where I think it makes sense to hop on something like this. Now, we said before that there were deals to lots of different regions around the world. And I'll say that the best deal out of this one, I think, was New Zealand, because a lot of the other regions, like, I don't know, I think Milan I saw was 60,000 miles, but that's not necessarily a special price for Europe. It's
Right.
not a bad price, but it's not a special price for Europe, and a lot of other places were that kind of thing. But New Zealand was a situation where you're unlikely to find that award availability easily in normal times, and certainly for the 60,000 United miles, blah, blah, blah. So it seems like almost a no-brainer if you have a lot of United miles and you see a deal like that. And this is not only United. If you got a lot of American Airlines miles and there's a similar deal on American, or a lot of Delta miles, all of those programs now offer ways to cancel tickets for free. So
yeah, Alaska too.
Yeah. So there's no sense in not booking it, I guess, when you get that opportunity. Book first and ask questions later. That's the mantra.
Exactly. And but I wouldn't necessarily transfer points. Now, there was, as an aside, there was some issue going on with transfers from Chase Ultimate Rewards to United. I don't know if that's resolved now or not, but even if there weren't problems at the time, you have to remember that's a one-way street. So if you're not sure, there's a big downside to booking just in case. And before we get too far into that, let's talk about your situation, Nick.
Well, that's exactly my situation. I had I didn't even have 60,000 United miles. It's some small pile of United miles in my account. So I would have had to have transferred from Chase Ultimate Rewards to United. And so I looked at it and I said, well, I don't know whether the trip is going to happen. Who knows? With COVID restrictions, things could totally change. Obviously, things have been opening up now, and I'm looking at booking more travel. But I'm not going to be willy-nilly about transferring points from Chase for a trip that I feel like is very speculative for me. So that was a big hesitation point for me. Now, if my situation was slightly different, I would say that if I had built points, if I had a bunch of built points, then I might have considered making the transfer there because they also transfer to United. So, and they transfer to Chase also, or to Hyatt also. But my main concern is preserving Chase points so that I have flexibility for Hyatt down the road. And so I think probably if I had both, anyway, if I had Chase, because I can always replenish my Chase, and I know that, but I can, if I had that pile of built points also, I think I might have been a little bit more apt to gamble and say, okay, well, I've got enough avenues to replenish here. And
that makes no sense, Nick.
No
sense at all.
No, it would have totally made a difference to me, because now I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't have very many Chase points, but if I also had a bunch of built points because I've been paying my rent with the built card, then I think I would be more apt to transfer those. I mean,
well, you could say the same thing if you had more Chase points.
You're right. Yes. If I had more Chase points, true. If I had more Chase points, I might have done it also. That's another good point there. If I had 1 million Chase points, I might have considered transferring over enough to book this, because it's so rare to get that opportunity, especially if I could have gotten 4 seats, like for my wife and I and my 2 kids, because I feel like 4 seats to get down under is going to be tight for us to ever manage in the next decade here. So then I might have done it, but I'm not flush with Chase points at this point. I've been using a lot of them. I've got a lot of Hyatt bookings on right now, and more that I'd like to make. So I'm being kind of careful with my Chase transfers. And like you said, the fact that it's a one-way street is really the big deal on that, because then they're locked up in United, and I don't know when I'm going to next need United miles. And we've all learned from the pandemic that things can change, and then you end up with this pile of airline specific miles that are only good for whatever that airline sweet spots are. and you never know when those are going to change and they're going to pull the rug out from under you. So, I mean, we saw a lot of people get hit with that with Virgin Atlantic. When Virgin Atlantic changed award charts for Delta, people had trips, I'm sure, booked to Asia that got canceled because of COVID. And then all of a sudden, Virgin Atlantic jacked up the prices. And now they don't even have enough miles to rebook the trips that they originally had on the docket. So I wouldn't want to end up in that kind of situation. Now, I feel like United, there's enough utility of the miles that it wouldn't be horrible to have United miles. You know, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I think that I was hesitant to do that because I'm getting so much value out of Hyatt, and I value the ability to book suites with Hyatt. So I need my Chase points for that right now.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. If I was not flush on United miles, I don't think I would have done this, because even though I have a lot of Chase Ultimate Rewards points, I don't think, well, all right, let me put it another way. If I was confident that even 80% confident that I would take the trip, then yeah, I would have transferred because it's so rare to find it. But I'm not even that confident. There's various things going on that make me less sure of it. So yeah, I would not have wanted to strand Chase points or Bilt points if I had those into United miles. United has decent business class pricing, but they're hardly ever best pricing. And so, you know, it just feels like kind of parking points in a suboptimal place.
Yeah, and the same thing is true when this happens with other programs, because we'll see sometimes great deals for booking business class. I mean, right now the 40% transfer bonus from membership rewards to Avios is a good example, because there are some great sweet spots, and so there's definitely some temptation there to transfer over miles and book something. I wrote actually this week about using your British Airways Avios to book Qatar through Qatar, and so, you know, I looked at that and I found some flights that were available, and I said, oh man, I could book this and, you know, lock up a trip and do it for very few miles. But again, then I end up with these points stranded in British Airways, and I'm not confident enough yet that that type of trip is going to happen to transfer over. Right. And I think a lot of us are in the situation where we've got miles in individual airline programs, and I'd prefer to use those first before I start transferring points. So
yeah. So what are some kind of lessons out here? I mean, one is obviously, if you're flush with miles in a particular program that you don't have already pegged for some use, then when you see a deal with that program, especially if it has free cancellations, then, you know, by all means jump on it and, you know, worry about it afterwards, because things like this don't last long. And so when you see all the blogs like cheering about, you know, some ability to book something or other, you know, just jump in and do it if you already have the miles.
Right. And that's almost a universal truth when it comes to not only miles, but also cash sales. You know, when you see a great cash deal, most US based travel agencies offer free cancellation for 24 hours. So it's the same kind of thing. Countless times over the years, my wife and I have seen a great deal and said, okay, you know what, let's book it right now, so we have something locked in, and then we can look for a better itinerary and or check schedules and call friends and see who else wants to jump in, and worry about those details after we lock something in, because these things last minutes or hours, not days usually. So you gotta,
this one did last days, but not, you know, by the time we reported it maybe lasts another couple days. I can't remember.
I'm not exactly sure how long this one was on for, but a rarity for something like this to last that long. Another piece of hesitation with transferring from Chase was that when I initially saw it, I didn't know it had already been on for days, and I saw it and I thought, is United even going to honor that? I don't want to go strand a bunch of miles with United only for them to cancel it and say it was a price mistake. And, oh, sorry guys, you know, we're going to cancel your flight and give you your miles back. Because in that situation, I would want my ultimate rewards back. And I know that you can't do that. So that was another piece of hesitation for me. I'm not too excited about transferring miles for an award price mistake, so to speak. And I put that in quotations because I feel like that term is not a particularly accurate one when these airline programs want to have dynamic pricing. If you want to have dynamic pricing, then you can't call it a mistake when it goes dynamic on you. But I make that terminology use, I guess, because I know that's familiar to people. You'll understand what I mean when I say it. So I was hesitant to move the points over under that premise that, if they cancel it, then I'm again stuck with this. And I didn't even cancel the trip. United did. So then I'd be even more annoyed that I lost the flexibility of the points.
Right.
But again, if you have them, you got to, smoke them if you got them, so to speak. Book these deals when you see them. Same is true with hotel awards too. I search certain destinations that I really like often. When I'm standing in line waiting for something, I'm usually looking at an award search. I'm pulling up like Marriott or Hyatt or a point.me and doing a flight award search. It's just what I do when I've got time to kill and I'm waiting for something. I'm looking up those things that, I would like to do this if I ever find availability. And then when I do, I know I'm going to book it right away. And my wife is used to the fact now that she'll wake up in the morning sometimes and I'll be like, so I booked this trip. What do you think? and that's a normal kind of a thing, because you do have the ability to freely cancel lots of different types of awards. Again, if you've got the existing miles already. Now, to other regions of the world, I wasn't super excited. And also, I mentioned the Alaska thing to New Zealand or Australia, but that's not necessarily the only great deal. There are other good options if you want to get down under too, right?
Oh, for sure. We've talked a lot about how good ANA's pricing is to a lot of parts of the world, but there you do have to worry about fuel surcharges. So if you book part of the trip on an airline that charges a lot, you're going to pay a lot. So I don't know what else is in your mind as far as good deals. That's the first one that
came to mind. ANA, both for the round trip Star Alliance, you're looking at, I think, 120,000 to Australia and New Zealand. So it's 60,000 each way. And in this case, with something like United, then you would be not getting hit with fuel surcharges, since United doesn't charge them. Though that said, these seats were not available to partners. So you wouldn't have been able to do that anyway in this specific instance. But my point is that pricing is very similar. So you get that just about any day of the week. First class also via Aeroplan is not unreasonable either. And you can book Etihad, right? I don't know if they're still flying the route, but in normal times anyway.
Right. And if they bring back the Etihad first apartments, that would be a spectacular way to fly, to Abu Dhabi, and onward to Australia. That would be spectacular. It would cost a lot more miles. I think it would be about double what we're talking about for one way.
Double the luxury for sure.
At least, more than that.
Right. So I think that's a potentially really good option, and that's one that I think you're more likely to be able to find at some point than you're likely to find another 6 seats to New Zealand or something like that, like you could have with this particular deal. But deals come and go all the time. Like Craig said, we're not looking to rub it in if you missed this one. I mean, I sat on the sidelines and watched other people book it, so I get the fear of missing out sort of feeling. But there are deals that come and go all the time. Knowing how to play them is more important, I think, than worrying about the ones you missed.
So when's a deal worth transferring your points over for?
I mean, things have changed, right? Because with COVID, the way that the world has changed in that regard has made me more hesitant about transferring over than I would have been in the past. I feel like in the past, I probably would have said, okay, we're going to commit and go these dates and I'll transfer. And I probably would have transferred for this. I feel like the last couple of years have made me more hesitant. Also, the fact that I have 2 kids now and kids get sick and schedules change and blah, blah, blah. So that makes it a little bit different for me now than it would have been in years past. But yeah, I think that it's a little harder now to determine when I would. I think I would when my travel is fairly near term and there's availability, which is really hoping for the stars to align. I feel like it's getting tougher for me to consider that. Or when 2 things happen, when there is both A, a very good award deal, and B, a transfer bonus, and C, I'm pretty sure I'm going to take the trip. So that's really three things. I know I said two. Then I think I transfer over points for that. What about you? I mean, I know you've got so many points in different programs now. You probably aren't going to consider transferring anything anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it makes when you have that situation like I do right now, it makes the idea of transferring to airline miles like really, unattractive. Let's say now I don't have as many United miles, so I'm not going to use that as an example. But they'll come back even if I only cancel half the flights. I'm going to have a lot of United miles back again. So let me use that as an example. So if let's say Air Canada has a much better award price or has some kind of deal going on, and the question is, do I transfer to Air Canada to book that thing, or do I use my existing United miles and book it for a lot more miles? And you know what? I mean, I think to the extent that I have the United miles, I would usually rather do that.
Yeah, I think that's a sound way to look at it, because those United miles are already locked up and have limited purposes. And at some point, United will change their award chart and devalue things. And so better to use them and keep your flexible points flexible in general. Though I will say, I think the other thing that comes into play is I'm more likely to transfer either A, points that I don't see as being as valuable to me as other transferable points, like Brex, for instance, only has a few transfer partners. There's really only a couple that I use a lot. So I would be more apt to play it fast and loose with transferring over my Brex points than I would with my Chase points, since I don't have other ways to generate Hyatt points right now. So that's one thing. The other thing is, how often do I use the award program, or how often am I likely to use the award program? And so, for me, I end up booking a lot of Star Alliance awards. So I wouldn't feel too bad about transferring points to Life Miles, I feel like, because I'm fairly likely to use those sooner rather than later, just because Star Alliance tends to work out with my needs. And even though Life Miles has some drawbacks in terms of the fact they can't always see the availability you want, customer service isn't particularly good, overall, they meet my needs enough that I'd be okay with transferring over a decent quantity there, or a usable quantity. And Avios, I feel like I'm not going to speculatively transfer, but I would also be like, well, okay, between some of the options with American using British Airways, or moving them over to Iberia, or now being able to use them for Qatar, I might be a little bit more likely to transfer to Avios, I guess, than I would have been in the past, at least. But yeah, I think that's, I'd have to consider, okay, well, how often am I using those miles? If I'm using them a lot, okay, then great, I'll transfer to that program. But if it's something like Singapore miles that I very rarely use, I didn't jump on the deal to get Singapore Airlines status for transferring 250,000 miles over, not because I didn't have the points to move. Amex has been giving points out like candy over the last couple of years, so I had plenty of points transferable to Singapore, but I haven't redeemed Singapore miles in probably 5 or 6 years now, and I don't know when I'm going to again. So
yeah, so Singapore is actually a great example of one that I'm very hesitant to do, even though I did it in order to book those suites when they're available. I ended up having to cancel that, so now I'm sitting on now I'm sitting on Singapore miles that are going to expire in 3 years, full stop.
Right,
and that is bad. So I hate transferring to programs where the miles are going to expire no matter what you do, when I'm not 100% sure I'm going to take the flight. In that case, I did it because I so badly wanted to take that suites flight. Didn't work out with our schedule. So ouch. So that one hurts. Whereas, on the flip side, a program that I use all the time, like Hyatt, I don't have any problem moving my points to Hyatt.
That's a great point.
Because I know I'm going to use them for great value, even if I don't use it for whatever particular deal I'm trying to hop on at that time.
That's a great point. I just did that actually last week, because I was looking to book a room and I was like, oh, there's availability. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to need it. But I was like, but you know what? I'll use the Hyatt points one way or another. And I actually did the math quickly and did it wrong and transferred 20,000 points more than I needed. And I didn't even really feel all that bad about it, because I was like, I'll use those in short order here with Hyatt. So that's a great example of a program where I'm not at all hesitant to transfer over to Hyatt, because I know that a large portion of my Chase Ultimate rewards are going to end end up there anyway. Now, I'm not going to do it just for fun. I mean, I'm not going to just transfer them over, because I think I might use Hyatt someday. I'm going to transfer them over to book something, but I'm not going to feel particularly bad if I have to cancel that something. That's a really good point about the expiration policies. And it's always good to take a look at the expiration policy of an airline before you transfer to them, especially if it's something you're new with, because that Singapore one is a good example. And they're not the only ones out there that have a hard expiration like that. And also, even the ones that have ways to extend the miles are not necessarily easy, or at least they vary. Like, for instance, I had in my mind that basically every program these days gives you 18 months, that you have 18 months to have a activity in your account, whether you earn more points or transfer more points, or the various ways to do that. I had totally forgotten that Life Miles is only 12 months. And so I had some Life Miles that expired earlier this year because silly me, I didn't realize that they expired after 12 months and everybody had been extending them throughout the pandemic. So I was like, oh, those miles are never expiring, right? They keep extending them and it's got to be at least 18 months. And I know I transferred some a year ago and I messed up there. So you definitely want to know what you need to do to keep the miles alive and that sort of thing before you start transferring into a program. So I'm glad you made that point, because that certainly is a consideration also. And one of the reasons why I hesitated on that Singapore deal, and even the Singapore suites that you booked, I saw that and I found a day with 3 seats available in the new suites, what turned out to be the new suites. and I was kicking myself after we found out it was the new suites, because we didn't know initially whether it was going to be or not, because I was like, oh man, I missed my shot to get 3 of us in the new suites. But that was a big sticking point for me, that there are very few times I'm going to use Singapore miles, and man, I got to know I'm going to use them at some point in the next 3 years. And if I don't feel real confident about that, then I'm very hesitant. So that's, I think, all good information for people to consider when you're deciding whether or not to jump on these deals.
Exactly.
And how to keep the miles alive, which we have guides on a number of the most popular ones. We should probably have a guide on all of the major programs for how to keep your points alive in each of them, and the ones that you can anyway, whether a transfer works or this or that. So that's something for us to work on, I guess, because that's good. Oh, there we go. I was trying to think of something. That's why I was buying myself another second, because I knew there was something else that popped into my mind. The other thing to consider is transfer times. That's another one that, ANA is a good example where there might be great ANA award availability. All of a sudden, somebody announces that there's great availability. Somebody reports that, and there end up being posts. And I'm hesitant still to transfer over the miles to ANA, both because of their expiration policy and because they don't transfer instantly. So I don't know how many people like Greg have a pile of ANA miles and might book up all the availability before any points even get there. So I'm hesitant to book anything with ANA miles that requires transferring points like right away to jump on that deal. So I would be actually hesitant to use ANA, even if those United flights were available via ANA in this case. I would have been very hesitant to transfer to ANA to book them, because I wouldn't know whether my points will get there before the deal dies. So time sensitive I wouldn't do that.
And we do have a page that shows transfer times, as well as if you just go to our transfer partner master list, which shows all the different transfer partner options. We list the transfer times to the best of our knowledge there. Some of these things do change periodically, so it won't always be 100% right, but getting some previous data to help you make an informed decision about this is way better than nothing.
Right. All right. So I think some good information there. So some stuff to chew on for the next time the deal comes up. All right, so that wraps that up, I think. So we should probably slide into the post roast. Do you have a roast for me, Greg?
Yeah, I kind of roasted you at the outset around the Capital One thing. How about for me?
No, I'm gonna let you slide this week. So I know you're workationing, so I don't want to be hard on you. I want to get to this week's question of the week, because I enjoyed this week's question. So this came in via the email address mailbag@frequentmiler.com. And so Taylor says, thanks for the excellent content. Enjoy the podcast. He mentions that he or she, Taylor, got a companion pass in the next, or is going to have a companion pass in the next few months, and has a question about competitor status matches.
Okay.
Taylor
And
says
this is Southwest.
this is Southwest.
Companion
Yes,
Pass you're talking
I should have been clear about that. So Taylor is about to earn the Southwest Companion Pass. Probably did 2 credit cards, I'm assuming, since the welcome bonuses on those count towards the Companion Pass. If you're not familiar with the Companion Pass, you should be. Short story is that if you earn enough Southwest points in 1 year, which can include getting them from sign-up bonuses, then a companion flies with you for free for the rest of that year and the entire next year. It's long been one of the best deals in domestic travel, although questionable as to how good that is moving forward, but that's another discussion for another day. Taylor's question is about competitor status matches, though. Once Taylor gets the Southwest Companion Pass, they want to know, okay, what are my options for parlaying that into status? So Taylor says, unless I'm misinterpreting their status match challenge guidelines, it seems that many of the other U.S. airlines include Southwest A-list status as part of their status match programs, but not the Companion Pass. Is there something I'm missing here? What opportunities exist to parlay the Companion Pass into status with other airlines? I just want to make sure I'm capitalizing on any opportunities this would present. Thank you in advance for your help, Taylor. So, Greg, I'm asking you because I'm thinking maybe you can think of at least one in the past year we've seen. Maybe, I don't know. I'm gambling here. Any opportunities to parlay the Southwest Companion Pass into status with another airline?
Yeah, that is gambling because I don't remember.
Okay.
I think we did talk about one on the show in the past, but I don't remember what it was.
So these things come and go. So what would you do to? I'll come back to that in a second. What would you do in order to figure out what you could parlay the Companion Pass into?
Yeah, well, I'd start at
besides asking Nick and Greg at Mailbag at frequentmiler.com.
I would start at the website that's either called Status Match or statusmatcher.com. I don't remember. We spent about 20 minutes on a prior episode trying to figure out which was which, and I think we just confused ourselves and our audience. So you go to one of those, and it lets you find for any given program what are the known targets of what you can status match from and to.
Correct. Yeah. So, and I believe it's statusmatcher.com that I've always used for that, because you can pick your airline program out. And so, for example, I'll go to it live while we're talking here, because if you go to the Southwest Airlines page, then it gives you information initially about reports for obtaining Southwest status using your status from other airlines. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, then it has reports for leveraging status with Southwest Airlines Rapid Rewards, and it explains what you may be able to match to. And so people list their experiences with what they have either successfully or unsuccessfully tried to match. And so there are periodically opportunities that pop up in there. Now, the one that came to my mind initially was that Aeroplan offered that status match late last year, where you could have gotten 75K status, so gold status with, Star Alliance gold status through Air Canada Aeroplan with the Southwest Companion Pass. Now that I was counting on Greg to remember, because he did that status match, I think, that required one round trip flight on Air Canada. That was only available for a little while. And in fact, the match from the Companion Pass to the Star Alliance Gold only lasted for the first day or two or three, and then they changed up the requirements, and it no longer matched to that same high level of status. So you got to be ready to jump on a scenario like that when it happens. So that's one that comes to mind that did come around. So it might be worth keeping an eye out in case Air Canada does something similar again, although my guess is that they won't have it matching to an entirely useful status level, since they kind of caught their mistake, so to speak, there. So I doubt they'll repeat that. In the past, Alaska Airlines used to match you into, I want to say it was MVP Gold with a Companion Pass, because I tried it at one point, but I think that they've stopped doing that. So I don't think you can do that anymore. I think I would try, though. And so one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is I would give it a shot, even with airlines that don't list it as an option. I go back to Delta, and last fall I did a status match challenge with Delta, and they had a list of the airlines they match from. And I didn't have status, or at least a level of status that I would have wanted to match to with any of those programs. But I had Spirit Airlines Gold status. Now, they didn't list Spirit as something they match. And I mean, come on, it'd be ridiculous for Delta to match Spirit Airlines status, right? But whatever, I submitted it because there was an option for other. There was an option if you had status with some other airline. So I submitted my Spirit Gold status and said, hey, I want you to match me to Delta Gold. And they wrote back and said, sorry, we don't match Spirit status. Get out of here. Well, they left out that last part, but I wrote back and I said, well, why not? It requires roughly equivalent spend as Delta Gold and blah, blah, blah. And so I made my argument as to why it was a competitive level of status. And they wrote back and said, you know what, you're right. Status match on. And so just because I pushed back, if I hadn't pushed back, A, if I hadn't asked because Spirit wasn't in the list, then I never would have gotten it. And then B, if I hadn't pushed back with an argument as to why I thought they should consider matching it, then they wouldn't have done it. But it's worth taking a shot maybe with that kind of thing. So, I think
that's a great point. Airlines offer status matches not just to be nice. They do it because they're trying to attract frequent flyers from whatever program they've been frequently flying to their program. And so, they don't really have any incentive to turn you down, and yeah, I mean, some they all have rules that they may or may not follow. And so it's definitely worth poking at the edges and seeing what they'll do. Yeah. So especially if you think you're going to fly whatever that airline is enough to meet the challenge, because most status matches are temporary, about 90 days. You get status for about 90 days. And if you fly enough during those 90 days, you get to keep it for, let's say, a year. It depends on the match exactly how long you'd keep it. And if you think, I'm going to be flying on, airline X for a lot coming up, then looking at every option to match to airline X beforehand, really good idea.
Yeah, definitely. And in my case, I knew I was going to fly enough to be able to meet the requirements for the status match. So it was totally worth it to me. Now I've skipped out on some other status match opportunities over the years where I've said, you know what, I'm not going to fly enough either A, to meet the requirements, or B, to make the status useful. So I've left those be because a lot of airline programs will only offer you one status match either per certain amount of time every few years, or maybe even one per lifetime. So I haven't wanted to burn that bridge when I wasn't going to be able to either A, meet the requirements, or B, use it enough to make it worthwhile. So you want to consider that too when you're matching. I would be happy, though. We talked recently about the ANA status match that they offered, and I'd be happy to take a swing at something like that, because again, that's another one where I think they just had a box for other. And so why not try to see if you can match it to ANA? I mean, they may say no, but that's the worst thing they're going to say. So I would probably try and submit it, because we talked just recently about how ANA has only ever offered that like this time. I think we don't remember a time when they've ever offered a status match otherwise. So there's very little downside to giving it a shot and seeing what happens. And because, like Greg said, these programs don't have a lot of incentive to deny you. And while they often have rules and they follow them, I'm sure to some extent, it's also not exactly set in stone. I think probably the person who approves or denies your match has the ability to click a magic button and make it happen. So you're dealing with a human being. It's not a computer algorithm necessarily. And there's a human that can make something happen. So might as well take a swing at it. So good luck to you, Taylor. I hope that you're able to parlay that into something that's useful for you.
Yeah. And once you get that one, use that one. Right. Let's say ANA accepts you, use that one to match to other things, and so on and so on.
Exactly the way it is. And that's what I did, because I parlayed my Delta Gold now into hopefully ANA. I haven't checked yet today. They said it would take up to 14 days, and they seem to be taking their sweet time with it, because I did the match before we even posted it. I still haven't seen it update, but
yeah,
one of these days, hopefully we will.
ANA likes to take a while with things. So, I think I mentioned on a previous show that my miles had,
yes, you did.
had been renewed, and the way it renews is they take them all away, and they are gone for about 3 weeks until they suddenly reappear. And they did reappear just the other day. So
I'm glad to hear that. Thank goodness.
If you were worried about my miles,
I thought you were going to say they still haven't reappeared, but
no.
Good to know that they're back. All right. So good luck to you, Taylor, and good questions. So always look out for those opportunities to match your status and see if you can make it something even more useful to you. Unfortunately, though, I think that means we're at the end of today's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can definitely join,
or even if you didn't,
you might as well join our email list, because maybe you'll like what we write better than what we say. So So go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Again, that's frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list. You can follow us on all the various social media, join our Frequent Miler Insiders Facebook group. And if you have a question, you can send that to mailbag@frequentmiler.com, and maybe you'll get on the next week's question of the week. So thank you guys very much for being out there with us. Oh, and wherever you're watching or listening or whatever, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, a little feedback. We always appreciate that too.
Yeah, we are offering Fipple rewards this week for anyone who leaves a comment or rings that notification bell so that you'll get notified when there's new videos and podcasts and everything like that.
Fipple
rewards.
I laughed because you started to say that, and I thought you were going to say something else, and then I laughed because you made a good, funny little pun there. But I think it's worth mentioning, now that you said that also we do a monthly Ask Us Anything that has been on YouTube, and we got a little behind these last couple of months. But by the time you're listening to this, we'll have a post out already about this month's Ask Us Anything, which is going to happen on April 27th. So if you're listening to this podcast when we publish it, you got a couple of days before we do it. And the reason that I mention that is because I think there may be a giveaway or two that'll be worth tuning in for. So you'll find out more about that.
We're going to have some nice giveaways there, and it'll be, those giveaways too.
Right.
Fipple rewards. And using Wyndham math.
Right, exactly. So come out and join us on the 27th if you're listening to this shortly after publication. All right. Thank you guys very much, and we will see you again next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.